Tonight is going to be an interview, ladies and gentlemen, with the one and only Lindell Stewart. We're going to be talking about how Lindell has built a $3 million coaching business from scratch in the last 12 months.
I started my first business in 2017, which was the digital marketing part of my background. I became a mum. I had a 1-year-old at home. Corporate life was not giving me the flexibility that they promised, of course. So I had to take matters into my own hands. We had $3,000 in our savings, and that was it. I was running a business that looked really good on paper, and it looked really good to everybody else, but I wasn't fulfilled. I wasn't happy. And that's, funny enough, the year that I discovered human design. And that's when I was like, this is literally a game changer for everybody. Because like I said, it changed my life. When I had a human design reading, I was like, this is changing everything for me.
But I always remember on the very first day of sales, I think we did something like $80,000 in sales on day one. And I remember you had done about $60,000 for the whole year up until that point. We do $80,000 on day one.
It's just this constant dance between trusting and doubting, right? Like I doubt myself, but then I'm trusting myself. I'm like, it'll be okay. We'll pull through. The more success, there's more responsibility. I've had to embrace imperfection, that it doesn't have to be perfect. It just needs to get done. Like you need to keep going. You need to keep moving forward. What I've had to release is just fear, like just do it scared. Best thing that I've done is just to be like, cool, I feel terrified. This is scary. This is the unknown, but we're moving anyway. Just dream really, really big, because worst case scenario, you're still going to hit way further than what you thought you could.
We're joined with a very special guest. Tonight is going to be an interview, ladies and gentlemen, with the one and only Lindell Stewart. We're going to be talking about how Lindell has built a $3 million coaching business from scratch in the last 12 months. And also, we're going to give you guys the opportunity to ask some questions as well. And so I'm going to do a bit of an interview with Lindell up front. We're going to go through some questions. We'll talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly over the last 12 months together, some big lessons that we've learned, and go through some of the numbers for everybody. And then there'll be an opportunity and a bit of space for you guys on the call to ask some questions as well about Lindell, about her business, about human design, about all of those good things as well. So without any further ado, let's jump into it. Let me spotlight and pin Lindell, and then also myself. How are you, darling? Good to see you.
Hello, very well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Oh, hey, fuck, we're so lucky to have you, babe. We're so lucky to have you. Awesome. Can everyone see and hear Lindell and myself just fine? So, ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know, this is Lindell Stewart. Lindell Stewart's one of our business partners, obviously at Wild Success. Before she was a business partner at Wild Success, she was a client and a friend, and we've been clients of Lindell for a number of years. Lindell's a specialist in the area in the field of human design, which is really a cutting-edge behavioral profiling, sort of mixed with horoscopes and astrology and numerology and human insight. And it really gives you a tremendous way of understanding who you are and how to show up in the world most authentically and effectively, because we obviously understand through Wild the power of internal alignment, right? Like if you're in alignment with who you are, who you're meant to be, what you're meant to be doing on the planet, things just happen naturally and easily. And if you're out of alignment with that, then you sort of get stuck and you get in your own way. And Lindell's a master at being able to help people get insight in that area and then helping them unpack their strategy to be able to best perform and operate and engage. And so I learned human design for, I don't know, maybe 13, 14 years ago. And then found Lindell. We started doing some coaching together and been working together ever since. And so Lindell has done human design for us as a team. She's done it for me and Ash as a couple. She's done it with the girls, Alila and Havana, and we've got a family chart that we put together. And every time we hire a new person at Wild, Lindell runs not a background check, but a human design report check on everybody. It's the final stage of the interview process. I get their date of birth, I get their star sign, their horoscope, where they were born on the planet. And then Lindell puts together a report and then sends me an audio file on them and on the strategy on how to get the most out of them and some of the red flags for us to avoid. And so it's been unbelievably effective for us as part of our overall strategy for growth and personal development. So that gives you a bit of a background in terms of Lindell professionally. But before we jump into this last 12 months, Lindell, if you can, give me and give everyone else a bit of an insight and background to who you are. Obviously, before human design, You're also running a very successful marketing company, then transitioned out of that. And that's when we started working together in a coaching space, which when you're running marketing and then transition to human design. Tell us about your family life. Obviously, you've got a beautiful husband and a beautiful little boy, Jackson. So just tell us a bit of background about you as a woman, as a business owner, about the journey that you've been on, and then a little bit about human design. And then we'll jump into the details of what's been the last 12 months.
Yeah, awesome. So I started my first business in 2017, which was the digital marketing part of my background. I became a mum. I had a 1-year-old at home. Corporate life was not giving me the flexibility that they promised, of course. So I had to take matters into my own hands. I took some of my skill set that I already had, brought it into business. Had my son, I could have him at home with me. We had a lot of sleepless nights for many, many years. So that was all really important for me to have a business that could be built around that. When I discovered human design, though, is when I actually realized that was my true passion. I was always good at the digital marketing piece, but I didn't have this real passion and love for what I wanted to do. So the human design piece was that for me, and it unlocked so much because I completely changed my business model. I then completely moved into human design coaching space. I then started working with you and joining your courses, your programs, so that I could build the human design coaching component. So it's been an incredible journey, and it was the scariest step to fully take into the human design piece because it's still quite new for a lot of people. Not everybody knows or understands it, but it has such a massive impact on personal life and business. So it was a no-brainer for me.
Talk to us a little about that moment of leaving the career and the job to then setting up the digital agency. And then also the second transition of leaving the digital agency and then setting up the human design business as well. And I was there for the second transition, not the first transition. So, but, for a lot of the clients, as you know, on this call, there are people that are perhaps running a business at the same time as being employed and wanting to make that transition, or they're in a place where they built a business that is no longer really serving and fulfilling them, and they know there's another level to that. And perhaps they're already running a traditional business and wanting to move purely online, as an example. So talk to me about those transition points. And obviously, there's also a conversation there around the conversation you're having with Lane, your husband, as well, around being able to make that happen financially and economically. So just give us a bit of an unpack of that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think when it was time for me to step out, I was working part-time. I had an office management role and it just wasn't working out. I was getting more and more exhausted. It was just, daycare, kids getting sick as a nightmare. So I basically said to my husband, this is not working. I'm not happy. I was going to start a VA business. My dad's already into tech. He runs a business and he was like, get into Facebook ads. Trust me. And I was like, I don't want to do Facebook ads. I looked into it. I got it. I started networking locally with small business owners. The conversation really with my husband at that point was like, we had a few little dollars in the savings account. I had an old laptop and I was like, let's just give this a go. We'll just see what happens. And he was like, look, give it a go. If we can make it work, then why not? It makes sense for all of us. So I did that. I remember getting my first client and getting off the phone to her and then realizing I had no idea how to send an invoice. So I had to actually Google it. So that was how green I was in business. The networking component was really big, meeting people out and about, going out into the community, talking about what I was doing. But yeah, the conversation at home really was like, I just need to give this a go. And what is that going to look like? And it was really bootstrapping from day one on that front.
So how much runway did you have when you left the part-time job, like in terms of cash flow or in terms of months, maybe even weeks?
I would say we had $3,000 in our savings.
Okay, fuck all.
That was it. Yeah.
Okay, and your first client in digital marketing was how much?
I literally charged her, I think it was like $400 for the month. And I was also doing social media management of like a post per day. And I had to come up with all the content. Yeah.
Okay. Now, at the height, that got to six figures. You were making six figures in that. So how long did that transition take you? Like, in order to get your first six figures in the digital marketing agency, what was that time frame? And then also, like, what are effectively the product and service, like, what were the lessons learned in that first business?
Oh gosh, so many. So it took me just over 6 months to reach my first 100,000. I reached the 80K in about 10 months. I quickly realized I was undercharging for Facebook ads. And one of the first things I invested in before I even had the money was training in the Facebook ad space. So I had a mentor that I paid for out of my savings. So basically I had clients that were just paying for that for the first few months. So that helped me really start to build my confidence, build my price point, increase my price point. And obviously then the proof started being in the pudding and people started sharing my work, and then it built from there. So yeah, it took me about just over 12 months to reach that $100,000 mark.
Fantastic. And if you could go back to that person, not in a human design space, but if you go back to the startup, that first 12 months to get to 100K, what do you think was the biggest lessons you had to learn in order to be able to get there? Like effectively, we would have started again tomorrow, you'd obviously get there faster. So what was the major unlocks that took you to six figures in the first business?
Charging what I was worth, as far as I invested in my learning. I already had skills. I think that's the quickest lesson I had to learn, is constantly undercharging wasn't going to get me to where I needed to get myself to. Investing in education, as like I said, through a mentor, learning the platform. I think that the other conversation that's really important for me was boundaries, having boundaries with what I needed in my personal life. So I needed to say no a lot more. I needed to say no to friends on weekends because I was building something and I had to give it all I could to really get it to where it needed to get to.
Yeah, 100%. Amazing. Incredible. So, fast forward now, you're over a year in, you've got now a six-figure business, which then becomes a trap in and of itself, right? So you could very easily have taken that and continued to grow it. I imagine that's a whisper in the back of your mind to say that you should be doing something different, because it's not certainly that you're not financially successful with the social media marketing business. What was it for you that was like, hey, even though this is working right now, and it's certainly harder to walk away from a six-figure income stream and then start something brand new for yourself. What was that conversation like for yourself internally? You just talk us through a little bit of that to go, was it a strategy thing? Was it it was an intuitive thing? Like, talk me through why you make the decision to walk away from what is 100,000 easy money in social media to then doing this whole new, brand new thing, which most people don't fully get anyway.
Yeah. So I think for me, it was always there's got to be more. Like on paper, it was a great business. It was profitable. I could do it from anywhere. I could use my own hours. But what I ended up doing is I was doing a lot of what everybody said I should be doing, which was building an agency. I ended up with an office space. I had staff. And then I quickly realized I was running a business that looked really good on paper and it looked really good to everybody else, but I wasn't fulfilled. I wasn't happy. And that's, funny enough, the year that I discovered human design. And that's when I was like, this is literally a game changer for everybody, because like I said, it changed my life. When I had a human design reading, I was like, this is changing everything for me. Reduces the burnout, reduces so much that just didn't need to be. And so I realized what I was actually doing is I created a business that looked really good for a lot of other people in my life, rather than what I really wanted, and just following my own intuition. That was very scary because, again, like I said, I'm a very logical person. So there's nothing logical about shutting down a perfectly profitable business. So basically that next conversation with my husband was, I need to take this leap. I don't want to do this anymore. And so what that's going to look like is we needed to take out a personal loan. I took out a personal loan. We sold a little bit of some of our investment that we had. And I was like, that's going to give me 6 months runway so I can continue to kind of ease off my Facebook ads clients and go all in on the coaching business. And my goal at the end of that was, if this doesn't work, I'll get a job if I have to. And luckily that didn't happen.
Luckily that didn't happen. So what year, what month was it that you make the decision to transition? Like, you go from one to the next?
January 2024 was when I was
Jan 2024. Awesome. And from Jan 24 to effectively November 24, before we start working together with human design, total income for human design in that sort of 11 months, but prior to November?
Just for the human design piece, so that was doing one-on-one coaching with and human design coaching with clients, I was sitting at just under the 60K mark. Okay.
So it's about half of what you were making in the digital marketing agency, right?
But doing
and of course, you're doing a bit of both, right? Because you've still got some of the clients, but you're just not growing the clients that are in there.
Winding them back.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. And talk to me about the first human design reading that you have. Like, what shift does that make for you personally? What do you learn about yourself that you didn't know before? What's the sort of aha moment or the insight that happens from there when you have that first reading?
The biggest aha moment for me was my energy and understanding my energy type. When I understood my energy type, I realized why I felt like my whole life I was trying to keep up with everybody else, doing things like everybody else was doing them, because majority of the population are a certain type. So I realized that I was only 20% of the population from my energy type perspective. And then when I realized that actually I'm not lazy and I don't have to subscribe to this consistent burnout cycle I kept finding myself in. But what I really just needed to know is know how to use my energy properly. And I literally, in 24 hours after that reading, I changed my whole business. I let staff go. I canceled the lease to my office. I let clients go. I was like, it's something needs to change. And it shifted everything. So although I was making less income, I actually ended up with more profit because I'd made the right cuts that needed to be made.
Yeah, massive. Excellent. So for everyone that's on the call that has no fucking idea what human design is, give us a background in terms of what is human design, what's the technology, give us the not the elevator pitch for human design, but give us the I don't know, the short course on human design.
So I like to refer to human design as like the modern day Myers-Briggs, because I think most people kind of understand that's kind of like a really popular personality test. But what it also takes into consideration is like ancient wisdom. So you do have your astrology piece, you've got the Chinese I Ching, you've got your energy centers, but then you've also got some science, so you've got epigenetics that takes place in that as well. And really what it does is it gives you a snapshot of who you are on an energetic level. So how you best operate. And then what I love to do with human design is there's so much strategy in it that you can actually pull out and be like, well, if this is your energy type, how can you adjust your business and your offerings and everything that you do in your life so that it suits your energy, so you're more efficient, you're more effective, rather than trying to constantly fit into like a cookie cutter approach on how business needs to look.
So there's layers of human design. Would it be fair to say that, right? There's the base level, which is there's 4 different design types, right? Or energy, five. Okay, so what are the 5?
So you've got manifesting generators and generators. They make up majority of the population. We've got manifestors, projectors, and reflectors.
Right, gotcha. And so majority of the people in the world, like me, generators. So that's the majority of the energy type. How is that most likely described? Like, yeah.
So our manifesting generators and generators are what we call our energy type. So they have an ability to create their own energy when you're doing the things that's for you, right? So you really have a lot more of a sustainable energy to you. Whereas the other 3 types, which is where I'm included in, is what we call the non-energy types. Not because we have absolutely no energy, but because we have a limited supply of energy. And once it's used, there needs to be rest in order to build that back up. So basically they just don't work the same.
Gotcha. And so you're obviously in a non-energy type versus, and you can appreciate in the hustle culture that we have, if you come from a world where everyone talks about being an energy type, and that is the majority of the populace, it's pretty easy to go, well, I'm a square peg in a round hole.
100%.
And then when you talk about strategy within human design, obviously there's the energy types, there's 5 of those, but then there's a series of different gates, and some of those are open and some of those are closed, or some of those are fixed and some of those are open, I think is the right choice of words. And so just describe a little bit about that for everybody.
Yeah, so we've got the circuitry, which is the gates and the channels, which is kind of more the personality nuance side of things. And then you've also got the centers. So we've got 9 energy centers in human design. They will be defined or undefined. And so basically when we look at the energy type, that's kind of like the foundations. It's like when you understand how your energy works, you build sort of everything around that. And then you'll go into the next layer, which is those centers, to find, okay, what's playing out in these centers. Each center has its own quality. If it's defined, there's more consistent access to that. If it's undefined, there's not consistent access. So again, just understanding how to use that. And then the next layer to that would be the circuitry. And that's where we get more nuance. So you can have literally 2 energy types that are the same, but they'll have different centers and different gates and channels activated. And so that the way that plays out for them from a personality perspective, from a energy perspective, will slightly differ between the 2.
And then one of the things that you've been very helpful for us about is then understanding how those charts work together, right? So as an example, we had Lindell do a chart for Alila and Havana, and they've got effectively the complete opposite chart to one another. Where Alila has a open center, Havana has a closed center, and vice versa, right? So they're like almost a mirror image of each other. I think they are actually a mirror image of each other. And so talk to me a little bit about how that works in terms of team and culture and families and dynamics, about how you work together, and some people get the most out of you and some people you're going to challenge with, how that works.
Yeah, absolutely. So basically what happens is if you've got undefined or what we call open centers, you're more likely to be utilizing and picking up on other people's defined energy. So in a team environment, that can be really good to understand. So if you've got a lot of openness in one person, but they're around people with a lot of definition, whilst they're together, they're going to like synergize really beautifully. But what will happen for the individual that's got less definition, once they step out of that, they're really going to feel like that energetic slump. The other amazing thing as well is with the channels is you can have two opposing gates that actually, when you come together in each other's energy, that you actually complete that channel, which means there's an ability to utilize that energy with both of those people. So it can be really good with teams, and also understanding how people handle stress, how they handle pressure, and also where that might be playing out in the chart and what's going on for them. So you can really harmonize teams by understanding each other better. Incredible.
Love all of it. And every time I speak to Lindell, I learn something more about how little I knew about stuff in the first place. So let's jump to last year, October. I actually tried to find the exact date, and I didn't have time to go back in all of our communications and message threads. And I wasn't sure if it was on text message, Instagram, WhatsApp, email, I can't remember. But effectively, in October of last year, we connected. And at this point, we've talked about the idea of launching a human design coaching program to complement what you're doing with the work that you're doing in human design. Obviously, I've got my recollection of that, but tell me from your perspective and for everyone else on the call, what that original conversation is, what's the scope of that, what's the initial frame, and like what we're working together to accomplish back in November 11, nearly a year ago today. That initial conversation. Give us a bit of a snapshot there.
Yeah, because I remember you had reached out to book a call. And I honestly thought you were going to try and sell me into one of your programs because I thought, I wonder if he wants me in the mastermind or what's this going to be about. And so when we jumped on and you said, actually, I have an opportunity for you, and I'd love to come together and create something. My immediate thing was like, oh, could I pull this off? Like there was a little bit of apprehension of like, could I actually do this? But of course it was just mostly excitement. So I think it was just like a huge combination of it was a blur, that conversation, because for me, I think honestly as well, I had always, because I'd worked with you for a few years, I'd always admired everything that you've done, and you were this mentor to me. So to be able to have somebody that you look up to in business come to you and say, hey, I see what you're doing and I think it's really valuable and I'd love to do something with you. It's just a dream moment for me.
Oh, that's very kind. How the turns have tabled, right? Now when I try to book into Lindell's calendar, she tells me that she's too busy and I have to speak to her assistant instead. Now, we obviously hadn't put together a program. We just had a rough idea of a program at that point, right? I can't remember how long it took us to be able to actually conceptualize and execute. Do you know roughly what that timeline was? I know that we obviously launched on the 11th, but I don't know how long of a lead-in time that we had reasonably from that first conversation to that point. But it wasn't a long time.
No, it wasn't a long time. I think it was like 4 to 6 weeks at the most of like, let's do this, put something together. I sent it over to you. We refined it. Yeah.
And I don't think, and I think you probably were more prepped than Andy was, but I don't think we had like slides and everything even mapped out at this point. I think we just had an idea of what we're going to talk about and we built it week to week. So, you're obviously clearly, before even we had this conversation, a very capable, competent woman, right? You've learned Facebook ads and you've launched a 6-figure business doing that. You've then picked up human design and fucking ran with that and built that into what would have no doubt been on its own a 6-figure business or even 7-figure business. So, but talk to us about the idea of now you're not coaching somebody one-on-one. Now you're building a container for people. Now you're teaching people. And that's obviously a very different level, right? So, talk through your decision making around, okay, what am I going to put in this? How am I going to deal with this? What do you have to deal with in terms of, I'm sure there would have been some imposter syndrome around, well, fuck, who am I to teach this? Because obviously it's a new field. There's a lot of stuff that comes up for everybody in that, where you're like, well, now I'm going to be in the spotlight, and it's a bit different than if it's one-on-one and no one knows what the fuck I'm talking about. Now if I'm building a program for people, it's going to be a bit different. So talk me through that mentality piece. And we've had a lot of conversations around that, but give everyone an insight just so they know you're human.
There was so much imposter syndrome. There was a lot of freaking out behind the scenes. There was a lot of like, what have I done? What if I can't pull this off? I think for me, the scariest thing is being seen, right? To really be seen by so many people. And it's like, what if you make a mistake? What if you misspeak? Like, what will people think? And definitely, who am I to do this? So there was very much just needing to trust, again, like having somebody have faith in you before you have faith in you. Sometimes you just got to borrow that and just like, I'll just hang on to that for a second. But overall, I knew that this was the way I was going to have the biggest impact, because that was always my thing. I wanted to have impact. And in January 2024, I actually wrote down, my goal was to reach 1,000 people through human design. And I had no idea how I was going to do that. And so when this opportunity came up, I was like, this is how I'm going to do that. And obviously we blew that out of the water.
Yeah. So before we start, we set some goals, and we had a conversation for you and for Lane and for Jax as well. There was obviously a financial target that you had in mind, which I think from memory was about 400,000. That was the goal that you had, that you're like, fuck, we can work towards achieving that. That would be pretty phenomenal. And I think we were talking as well, one of the things you wanted to do was to put a swimming pool in the backyard, if I'm not mistaken. That was one of the things that were on the bucket list, right? So we starting with that as the intention. I have the numbers, obviously, for everybody. Lindell and I synced on this before we got into the program, but just for the initial upfront, we invested as a team $5,500, just over $5,500, so $5,576 for the November program. And the November program we launched for human design, there's a bit of that comes from the database at Wild. There's a bit of that comes from paid Facebook ads. But effectively, for the very first program we have, we get just over 2,200 people to register for the very first challenge. Talk us through what that's like for your first program, your 2,200 people, which fucking exceeded everyone's wildest expectations and dreams. Like, just give us a snapshot of what that is like when you're running that the first time. Obviously, since we've run, I don't know how many, nearly a dozen, I'm sure, something similar to that. Certainly 8 programs since then, but give us a snapshot of what that's like, 2,200 people and that first exposure and that first experience.
It was scary, I won't lie. It was getting on a call. It is exhilarating and terrifying all at once. There's this moment after the first call where I think it was a few days where I was still like, did that actually just happen? Did I just do this? And I think it's the first criticism, people commenting on ads as they do social media, all of that hits the nervous system a little bit. So I feel like it was really just kind of, it's amazing how much you get to fine tune what you can handle and how much you can stretch. So yeah, firstly, it was just scary to be seen by so many people.
Yeah. And so we do the program. Lindell manages to engage over 1,000 people in session 1. So we have over 1,100 people attend session 1 live and via replay. We end up doing about 39, nearly 40% retention to the end of the program. And just so everyone playing along at home, we end up doing 11 business sales, 63 human design sales. And so the total across the board was just over $300,000 we make in the very first session. When you add in the business stuff as well, it's nearly $350,000 in a month. But I always remember on the very first day of sales, I think we did something like $80,000 in sales on day 1. And I remember you had done about $60,000 for the whole year up until that point. We do $80,000 on day 1. Talk through what that's like on the very first day. You're pitching, and by the way, we're selling a product that doesn't exist, right? Because this is November. We're not doing the Advanced Prac program until, is it February we're launching Advanced Prac? Yeah. So, 2 questions here. 1, you're running a program that didn't exist a month prior, and you're sort of making it up as you go along. You got 2,500 people nearly doing the fucking course with you, and now you're selling to a group of people, and successfully, obviously, it is worth pointing out, but you're selling those people a program that's happening in February that also doesn't exist as well. What surprised you about those conversations, and what was the most challenging part of putting together the advanced program while you're still effectively doing the first program?
I think the most challenging thing was, again, just capacity to be like, can I do all of this? Capacity, don't know what I don't know. So it's kind of like, again, it's just this constant dance between trusting and doubting, right? Like I doubt myself, but then I'm trusting myself and be like, it'll be okay, we'll pull through. The most surprising part, I think, for me was how many people were like, cool, let's go, let's do it. Like it was easy conversations. That was really surprising to me. And I think it was just those, and I think also what I loved the most about it was getting to talk to people and find out why they love the work so much and how they've seen the transformation even just in the 4-week program. It's like, if that's all I do, to me, I was like, my purpose, like I've done it.
Yeah, because if you were being skeptical of a front-end program that's free, you would say that people that do a free program are not committed, they're not going to have any money, and certainly there are plenty of people like that, right? But what was the experience overwhelmingly like for you on the phone speaking to, hundreds of people? There's obviously, there are the people that come through that don't have any money, but they're still inspired. But like overwhelmingly, what's your sort of sense of take, having now done, let's call it 8 or 10 programs? What's the sense of what that is like, having done 3-4 weeks with these people, and then there's an application to then want to take the next step?
Yeah, I think for me, the real sense was how much people are looking to stop having to feel like they're constantly doing life wrong, right? And being like, wow, there's actually a way that I can not only help myself, but now I can also use this to help other people. So I think most of the sense of people, everybody wants to change their own lives, but a lot of people also want to change other people's lives. So it's like this beautiful knock-on effect.
Yeah. And team, just for the understanding for everybody, Lindell got just shy of 200 applications for the advanced program, right, from a cold audience, which is amazing. And the conversion rate was 32%. So basically, 1 in every 3 conversations ended up buying the advanced prac in that first November course. Do you remember the price point that we were pitching out in that first one, Lindell? It's obviously changed a lot since then, but do you remember the price point we had back then?
It was 3,000, 3,000 Australian dollars.
Paid in full, and then was it 5 on a plan?
Yes, it was 3,000 pay in full, and I believe the payment plan was at that point only 4,000.
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, I think it was 3,000 and 4,000 respectively. It's important to note, guys, as well, that when we go back to the more recent campaign that we did in September, which was, by the way, we'll come to this in a second, but Lindell did $1.2 million in September in 1 month. We'll talk about that in a second. But the conversion rate now, we went to 22, nearly 23% from a conversion rate, so slightly lower conversion rate, but significantly is the price point is much higher now. So what was previously $3,000 and $5,000 or $3,000 and $4,000 Australian is now between 5,000 and 5,000 Aussie, about 5,000 Aussie and 10,000 Aussie. So the price point is nearly doubled, but the conversion rate has only dropped by about 5% net, which is really quite interesting, right? Which is amazing. Incredible. So from a numbers perspective, we do that. That's obviously an incredible end to the year for you. So you do about $300,000 off what was originally $5,000 in spend. And then just to give everyone a quick high-level update on terms of the numbers. So January and November was the first launch. We do $300,000. January, we do the second launch, $334,000. Then in March, we do 176. In May, we do 186. And so the numbers are starting to decline a little bit, right? We obviously turn things around, which we'll talk about in a second. We'll get to that. But just talk to me about what that's like as well. So now the novelty of it being something new is worn off, right? Because now you're in the trench, you're doing it. And so we've gone from having a really good first launch to having a slightly better January second launch. But of course, as we know, the new year, new you vibe wears off. And so now we have 2 launches that are a little bit lower. And it's slowly teetering down where it's no longer as efficient, as effective as a model as what it was. Now, we know now why that was the case, but for the purpose of this conversation, not everybody else does. But without looking at the answers of it, I'm just interested to get your take on the psychology of that, because we've had conversations about this, which is, you see the numbers slowly getting worse, Talk to me about what that's like towards the end of sort of May, June of this year.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of self-doubt. It was like, was that, did I go too big too soon and it's all over? It's like that, that old story of like, what goes up must come down. Is this what's happening? But what I really had to remind myself of is the same as in my last business, is you're going to have months that are going to be lower and higher, and that's entrepreneurship. And I think I really just I had to keep reminding myself that this doesn't mean that we're going to continuously just downward trend. I had to remind myself to keep considering the fact that there's a lot going on in the world. There's many different reasons, and to really just look at the strategy, what's working, what's not working, retweak, and just trust that there's no way we can start so well, the first two, and then just continuously for it not to work. And there's always ways to do things. So it was just the battle of the mind at that point of just being like, what have I done wrong versus, okay, what needs to change?
100%. So talk to me about the idea that you have, because we were looking at the idea that in July onwards, we would move from a 4-week challenge to a 5-day challenge instead. That was the strategic change we were going to make in the hope that we can re-engage some people, slightly different offer. That was the sort of thinking about it. You make the decision, though, you wanted to do something different. Talk to me through what that looks like.
Yeah, so I enjoyed the 4-week piece, but I really wanted to try and reach the US. So I'd reach out to you and said, because I'd worked with a lot of US clients with the digital marketing business. I'd also done some white labeling for US agencies. I knew a little bit about what the US market can be like and just, what that could mean. So I reached out to you. I remember saying, can we try the US and do the 4 weeks again?
Yeah, and I was naturally very concerned about that for a couple of reasons, right? Like the US market is 350 million people. We have 25 million people in Australia. It's just very difficult to break into the market, right? There's a huge amount of money that you have to spend to be able to do that. And so we're really not very confident in doing that. But also in addition to that, there's also a time frame that's involved in that, right? You now have to change the call times that you do, or maybe add a second call in as well. There's no guarantee that's going to be successful. But we decided to have a punt effectively in July. And in July for HD, we launch into the United States. We spend $20,000 on marketing. $10,000 goes to the Australian market because we're like, well, we're already running that. And then we spend another $10,000 on the American market. And for context, the May launch was $186,000. The March launch was $176,000, and the January launch was $334,000. So collectively, we're looking at about $600,000 in sales, maybe just shy of $700,000. And in July, we ended up doing $642,000 in 1 month, and 70% of that comes from the United States. Actually, sorry, no, 80% of that comes from the United States. And then obviously that changes everything, right? You basically make in one launch what you'd previously made in the last 3 launches before, which was just incredible. We then double down on that. And then come September, we spend a bit more. We spend about $35,000 in Facebook ads. We generate just shy of 6,000 leads, which means it's the biggest program ever. And in September, you do $1.2 million in sales in 1 month, which is incredible. So we double it from July to September, which is just absolutely fucking ludicrous. Talk to me about the expansion into the US in July, like what you learned from moving to the United States with it and how that's different to what you've been working with previously in Australia.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing was just also with the US, they're just a different. They've got a different energy there. There's a lot more openness. I think as a consumer or a buyer, they tend to be, especially in business, they tend to be a little bit more, like I feel like in Australia, we kind of always like, what's the catch? What am I, like kind of a little bit more cautious, where the US seemed to be a little bit more like, yeah, let's just go for it, So that was a very different energy as well that I think really helped with that. But I think also they just have a lot more exposure to a lot more in the US. So human design didn't feel so, like I think sometimes in Australia, people are still like, what is this? I don't know what to do with it. Where in the US, they're kind of a bit more open to sort of like things that they don't hear about every day.
Yeah, 100%. And then talk me through September. September's the first time it's two things for Wild. One was the first time, obviously, Lindell, that you did $1 million in a month, but it was also the first time for Wild where we had a partner do $1 million a month, which was fucking massive. So talk me through what that month was like for you in terms of it's the biggest launch that we've ever had. It's obviously on the back of the biggest launch that you had previously at $650,000. Like, just talk through what that looks like doing $1 million in 1 month and what that required of you energetically, emotionally, spiritually, all the things.
Yeah, literally all the things. It's definitely a roller coaster of emotion, because with the more success, there's more responsibility. There's more, expectation. That part grows with it. So it's kind of like you all of a sudden realize, like, wow, it's amazing. But with it also comes the ability to be able to really show up, to deliver, to make sure everything is at a very high level, because now, again, you're just kind of raising the bar every time you do it. So for me, it's a constant stretch of capacity and what I'm capable of. And every time, like, once hitting that million, it's kind of like you feel like you have these delusional goals, and then you reach them and you're like, wow, okay, not so delusional. This is possible. So yeah, it's a whirlwind.
So since we started, which was 11th of November last year, and these are not exact figures, but they're pretty close, probably a little bit more than this, we've done 3.2 million. So just over $3.2 million. We've spent about $160,000 on Facebook ads in that 12 months, just so everyone has the numbers. We've spent just over 160 grand on Facebook, but keeping in mind that started with a $5,500 Facebook spend up front. So it was only $5 grand that we risked ourselves. The rest has been paid for by the business out of the money that it's made. We've generated just over 25,000 free leads for the 4-week challenges. We've done 450 sales into the advanced programs, just over 450 sales, and we generated $3.2 million in revenue. And so from a numbers perspective, like that's pretty fucking outrageous. Like, first, what's your take on that now, 12 months in, not even exactly 12 months in. What's your take on that in terms of, if we could go back to the 11th of November or the 10th of November and go, hey, we don't know it yet, but in the next 12 months, we'll do $3.2 million. Like, if we had that conversation back then, I think that defies belief. Certainly it would defy my belief. I would never in a million years have that expectation that we would do that. But what's that 12 months been like for you in terms of biggest lessons, learnings, insights?
Biggest lessons has been to always, you don't know what you're capable of until you actually just do it. I'm somebody that's always kind of like, oh, but what if I can't do it? What if I can't do it? And I know we had a lot of those conversations, and then I could be like, well, you just did this, so why couldn't you do that? Like, yeah, true. So I think that was the biggest thing, is like, just don't think that you can't do something because it seems or feels really big, because you really don't know until you just get in there and you just do it. For me as well, also making sure that I am energetically showing up for my clients. Like, what do I need to do behind the scenes? It's really made me grow as a person, to also know that as a leader now, that I really need to step into that space. And I also need to lead in my own personal life. I need to make sure that my health is good, that I've got really good relationships in my life. There's been things that have changed on the back end, even with friendships, like dynamics. Things needed to shift because I was shifting, and I needed to show up in a bigger way, but also a higher level. So those are the things that you don't know until you're in it.
Yeah, 100%. Talk to me a little bit about what that's like as well, because your husband's not FIFO in the traditional sense. He's not traditional FIFO in the sense he's not working on a mine site. He's working in some of the most cutting edge tech labs around the world, and super sophisticated in the work that he does, but he travels for a good chunk of time. And so a lot of this stuff that we're doing, you're doing this whilst also being effectively a bit of a single mom, right? Like looking after Jackson. How do you deal with that, especially because you don't live in an area that has a huge amount of support as well in terms of balancing that responsibility? What's that like? Give people an indication of what hubby's work schedule is like and what impact that has while you're trying to do all the things, because you are really doing all the things simultaneously.
Yeah, it's definitely challenging. It definitely means I've got to be super organized. So my husband does travel a lot, but he can travel 3 to 4 weeks at a time sometimes. Sometimes he's back for a week and then he's off again. It's challenging on that front alone. Obviously, I've got my son. During school. I need to be there for him. So really, it's the reality of it is that I've got to get really organized. And yes, we do live in an area where there's not a lot of resources available to me. So there's of course been, some freak out, some stressful moments. But what I've also learned is I have to not allow, like, nothing can be, like, I can't have everything perfect. My house can't be perfectly clean all the time. The kitchen can't always be 100%. The washing isn't always 100% up to date. So I really had to learn just to focus on what is the most important thing: quality time with my family and growing my business, because that's where my impact lies. That's where the success lies. And I'm not talking just about the financial success. It's also about what I'm building for myself, but also for my family, because this is going to have an impact in the best way on us as a family as well. It's going to give my husband opportunity to be able to consider other options moving forward because of what we've done in the business.
Yeah, yeah, amazing distinctions. I'm interested to get your take on this, and please don't hold back for my sake. But the it's easy for someone to look at what you've accomplished in this last 12 months and go, "Fuck, that is a dream," right? To replicate that same journey, and we're about to bring on board, as you know, some new partners, breath work, personal branding, meditation. There's some stuff coming downstream for us, which is very exciting. If you could say to somebody that is contemplating a similar journey, whether it's with Wild or not, but someone that's contemplating a similar journey, effectively, if there was a disclaimer here on be careful what you wish for, what would you say are red flags, the worst things about this, the most difficult parts of being able to be in the partnership with us over the last 12 months? There certainly hasn't all been sunshine and fucking rainbows, right? Like there's obviously a lot of wins, but there's also a lot of difficulties, and you do an incredible job of balancing those out, because I know I'm definitely an acquired taste. But what warnings would you give to somebody? Go, hey, heed these in before you rush headfirst into what you think is a great opportunity, because it's good, but you need to be aware of this.
Yeah, I think honestly, I think it's the pace that it moves at. Like, the pace is quick. And I've always been someone that can move really fast, but I think it's like you need to find a sustainability in that pace, because it's kind of like it's not sprinting. It's like we're doing a marathon and then we're sprinting and then we're doing a marathon. And again, that's when I very quickly realized that my own health needs to, it's got to be a whole thing, right? So it's like you said, mentally, spiritually, all the things need to be considered and looked after. So I've had to get better at managing nervous system, meditating, giving myself time out so that I am the best in the business, I'm the best at home, and I have, kind of really having really good boundaries. The biggest challenges, I would say, is just also like the automations. It's actually amazing what goes on behind the scenes. And if you've never seen anything like that, it's very hard to imagine. Just being across everything, right? Making sure that if this is happening here, this is affecting this there. And obviously that's what the partnership has been so amazing for, is that you're supporting in all of that. I wouldn't say there's any red flags as such, but it's really that you just don't realize what a machine it is on the back end.
Yeah, there's certainly a lot that goes on behind the scenes, no doubt about that. And of course, as we've grown together, there's been more and more that we've had to build, right, to be able to do that, because you've got to hold a container for more people. Amazing, incredible. What would you say is the one thing that you have had to embrace in this last 12 months to get to the success that you have today? And then also, what's the one thing you've had to release in the last 12 months to get to the success you've had today? And then, team, just as a bit of a heads up, I'm going to throw to you guys in just a little bit for a bit of Q&A with everybody. So if you have questions, get them ready. But what would you say is the one thing you've had to embrace and the one thing you've had to release to go from last year, 60,000 in human design to $3.2 million in this last 12 months?
I've had to embrace imperfection, that it doesn't have to be perfect. It just needs to get done. Like, you need to keep going. You need to keep moving forward. What I've had to release is just fear, like just do it scared. because I've done a lot scared this year. And I think that's the best thing that I've done, is just to be like, cool, I feel terrified. This is scary. This is the unknown, but we're moving anyway.
Incredible. Absolutely amazing, Lindell. It has been such a privilege to partner with you over this past 12 months. And of course, we're so excited as well about the next 12 months and ongoing. Let's jump out, right? Like, we're 12 months in. Let's jump out to 2020, this time 2026. What's the vision for you over, say, the next 3 to 5 years in human design? What would you love to accomplish and achieve? What do you see as the vision and the future behind what we're doing together? Just give us a bit of a snapshot of where to next for Lindell and the human design brand and what we're building and creating there.
Yeah, I think for me, the legacy piece is really big. I think building a legacy with human design at the forefront, I think it is something that is going to, and has the potential to really come into so many different businesses. I really do see that it's going to change the way people hire, the way they manage staff, the way we run businesses, the way we lead. So for me, it's really, if I could look further into the future, is just to bring more, I guess, deeper work with this, with more people, obviously, but also just getting it more, I guess, mainstream, to get it kind of like this is just part of lives and businesses and that sort of thing.
Yeah, incredible. Well, the good thing is, guys, at the moment, when we say we're in the United States, we're not really in the United States. We're currently only in 3 territories of the United States. So the success that we've had so far, 4 territories in the United States, has really only been in 4 centers, not the whole of the US, nor Canada, nor the rest of the world as well. Wild has done some stuff in Europe and the UK, but Lindell and Human Design, we haven't done anything there yet. So there's global expansion, I think, will happen there in a real genuine sense. We're also super excited about doing events and programs in person as well, which would be really amazing. Lindell has got an exciting master's program that she keeps talking to me about. So there's a lot of really cool shit that we're building and what we're working towards, which is very, very exciting. So amazing. Congratulations for you in a massive way. It's very, very exciting. We get to celebrate at the end of the year as well. We're going to Dubai together to celebrate the end of the year in New Year's Eve in Dubai. So about that. And next year, the plan as a family is to head to the US as well and to potentially base yourselves from there as the next chapter for you guys in your family, which is even more amazing. Talk a little bit about that just as well in terms of why that move, what does that represent for you, what's the conversations you guys are having at home about that?
Yeah, for us, look, the US has always been something I personally love. The US, I've been to the US a few times. My husband goes to the US a lot for work. So he works funny hours as well when he is at home because he's working with US and Europe. And we kind of thought, you know what, it would be really awesome to go to the US for a bit, see if we really like it. We can get back to some normalcy as far as it's really just about the family unit, right? To be able to get, my son's 10 now. We're kind of like having these conversations at home of like, these are the best years of our life before he becomes a teenager and doesn't want to hang out with us anymore. And it's like, how can we travel and make the most of what we have right now, whilst we have more freedom now because of the work that I'm doing and because of the partnership and all the success that has brought.
Yeah, incredible. Amazing. Awesome. Lindell, Don, appreciate you immensely. If there's one final piece of wisdom that you could share to everybody, having now been effectively 12 months later from this conversation, in a very, very different world, in a very different place, what's one piece of advice you'd give to everybody that's either starting their version of your digital marketing business or their version of your human design coaching business, or about to embark on the journey of a lifetime in terms of partnership with us, or just getting themselves set up in business as well? What's one piece of advice for everybody finishing off this year?
I think the biggest piece of advice would be that just because something looks good on paper or it's logical doesn't mean that it's going to get you where you want to get to. And so, as you know, I've always talked about being delulu, having those delusional goals, because I feel like sometimes I had these delusional goals around human design, and then this is where it's gotten me. So I had a mentor once say to me, aim for the moon, and worst case scenario, you land on a star, and it's kind of like, that's the whole, that thing. So I would just say, just dream really, really big, because worst case scenario, you're still going to hit way further than what you thought you could.
Yeah, 100%. Babe, we appreciate you. We love you. Very excited for tomorrow's launch, which will be the biggest in human design history, which will be amazing. Very excited to see what we achieve in November, which is just going to be incredible. And then, of course, off to Dubai at the end of the year to celebrate. Appreciate you. Have an amazing rest of the day. Give our love to Jax, of course. Is Lane home at the moment, or is he away?
He's away again, but he's back on Wednesday. So just a quick trip to Brisbane, and he'll be back.
Fantastic. Great. Well, lots of love to the boys. We'll see you soon.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Bye.